They say the first $10,000 is the hardest, and they're right. At the beginning, building wealth feels like trying to fill a swimming pool with a coffee mug. Slow, frustrating, endless. But here's the surprise. Once you reach that first milestone, the game changes. Getting from $10,000 to $100,000 is actually easier than getting to $100,000 in the first place. It sounds backwards, but it's not luck. It's not magic, it's math. And it's the reason most people underestimate just how close they are to breaking through. So let's break it down. Think about your first $10,000. It feels like an impossible wall to climb. You work overtime. You skip dinners out. You cut subscriptions and say no to things your friends enjoy. And at the end of the month, you have maybe a few $100s left over. It doesn't feel like momentum. It feels like standing still while the world keeps moving. That's because, in the beginning, you are the engine. Every extra dollar comes from your effort alone. You're pushing the boulder uphill, and every inch feels heavy. Imagine saving $300 a month into a high-yield savings account or a simple index fund. After a few months, you check the balance. You've got maybe $1,200. That's progress. But it doesn't feel like transformation because the interest you earn at this stage is tiny. Maybe $2, maybe $3. Enough to buy a coffee, not enough to change your life. And here's the painful truth. That's why most people quit. They look at the sacrifice they're making and the microscopic growth they're getting back. And they think, if this is what saving looks like, I'll never make it. But here's what they don't see. Those tiny dollars of interest, the ones that look like loose change, are seeds. And once those seeds have time to grow, they multiply faster than you expect. The struggle of the first $10,000 is real because you don't have momentum yet. It's like trying to start a snowball on a flat surface. It won't roll until it's big enough to catch gravity. That's the real reason the first $10,000 is the hardest. It's not just about the math. It's about belief. You're building discipline, patience, and the foundation for something much bigger. Because once you hit that $10,000 mark, everything starts to change. So, you've made it to $10,000. And you're probably thinking, great, but it still feels like peanuts. How is this ever going to turn into real wealth? Here's where the game flips. At $10,000, your money finally has enough weight for compound interest to matter. Think of it like crossing the minimum speed needed for a rocket to escape gravity. Before this point, you were burning fuel just to lift off. Now, momentum starts to carry you forward. Let's put numbers to it. Imagine you keep your $10,000 in a conservative index fund that grows, on average, 7% a year. That's about $700 in returns the first year. $700 might not sound like much, but here's the key. That $700 isn't just money in your pocket. It's fuel. Next year, you're not earning on $10,000 anymore. You're earning on $10,700. And the year after that, it's $11,449. Then $12,250. And the snowball keeps rolling. That's the difference between simple and compound interest. Simple interest would pay you the same amount each year, like a paycheck stuck on repeat. Compound interest pays you on top of the growth you already earned. It's money building on money. Now scale it up. At $50,000, a 7% return gives you $3,500 in 1 year. That's rent for a couple of months. That's a used car. And it came without you lifting a finger. At $100,000, that same 7% return is $7,000 in a single year. That's half the average American's annual savings. And again, you didn't grind for it. Your dollars did the work. This is when money stops being passive and starts behaving like an army of workers. They don't take weekends off. They don't ask for promotions. They just multiply quietly in the background. And the most surprising part? The longer you stay in the game, the faster the numbers accelerate. It feels slow at first, then steady, then suddenly unstoppable. That's why crossing $10,000 isn't the finish line. It's the ignition point, the place where math finally starts working for you, not against you. And once you understand this, the journey to $100,000 doesn't feel impossible anymore. It feels inevitable, if you stay consistent. The first $10,000 feels endless, But once you cross that line, something unexpected happens. The second $10,000 doesn't take as long, and the third comes even faster. Why? Because now you're no longer building alone. Your money is finally pitching in. Let's run through an example. Suppose you save $300 every month and invest it in a simple S&P 500 index fund, averaging 7% annual returns. At first, it takes you around 3.5 years to hit $10,000. 3.5 years of cutting expenses, saying no to trips, cooking at home, driving your old car a little longer. But to go from $10,000 to $20,000, it doesn't take another 3.5 years. It takes about 2.5. The jump from $20,000 to $30,000? Closer to 2 years. And by the time you're at $50,000, the compounding is doing so much of the lifting that you're adding 5 figures in what feels like no time at all. It's like running a marathon where the miles keep getting shorter. At first, every step is agony. But once momentum builds, the distance shrinks under your feet. By the time you're closing in on $100,000, your portfolio is adding thousands of dollars in growth each year without you lifting a finger. What took you 42 months to save in the beginning now happens in less than 12. That's the magic most people never see because they quit too early. They give up in the slow part, right before the acceleration begins. Think of it like climbing a mountain. The base is brutal. The incline feels impossible. But once you reach a certain height, the slope starts to level out. The air gets clearer. And for the first time, you can see the peak. This is the turning point between surviving and compounding, between effort and momentum. And it's the reason the journey from $10,000 to $100,000 feels less like dragging a weight and more like being pulled forward by gravity itself. Something powerful happens as your balance grows. It's not just math anymore. It's mindset. At $2,000 saved, money feels fragile. One emergency car repair or a hospital bill could wipe it out. At $5,000, it still feels temporary. Like it could vanish if life throws a curveball. But when you cross $10,000, the weight begins to feel real. And as you climb toward $50,000, something in your brain flips. You stop seeing money only as survival. You start seeing it as a machine that produces more money without you constantly feeding it. This shift is subtle, but it changes everything. At $20,000, a 7% gain is $1,400. That might cover a couple months of groceries or rent. At $50,000, a 7% gain is $3,500. That's a vacation, a semester of community college, or a new laptop and furniture set. At $100,000, that same return is $7,000. That's the average American's yearly car expenses, and you didn't clock in 1 extra hour of work to earn it. Here's the real kicker. These returns don't just add to your savings, they multiply your belief. Because for the first time in your life, you realize your money is carrying some of the load. Instead of asking, how do I make more money? You start asking, how do I make the money I already have work harder? That's when wealth building becomes less about willpower and more about design, less about sacrifice and more about systems. This is also when you begin to think differently about spending. That $50 impulse dinner out, you see it for what it really is. Not just a meal, but a delay on your path to $100,000. That $200 wasted on unused subscriptions, not just wasted cash, it's a piece of your financial engine that never got built. Your perspective sharpens. And suddenly, decisions that used to feel painful, like saying no to a new phone, now feel empowering. Because you know every dollar kept is another worker added to your army. This is the quiet transformation that keeps the snowball rolling. Not just the math of compounding, but the mindset that refuses to let momentum slip away. And it's exactly why the climb to 6 figures gets faster the closer you get. Math and mindset are powerful, but they're not the whole story. To move from your first $10,000 to your first $100,000, you need strategy. And strategy lives in 3 levers: offense, defense, and efficiency. Offense, growing the flow. Most people think they're stuck with whatever paycheck they get, but income isn't fixed. It's flexible. The fastest way to accelerate from $10,000 to $100,000 is to increase your inflow. Think of it like water filling a tank. The wider you open the faucet, the faster it fills. That might mean asking for a raise, negotiating a promotion, starting a small side hustle. Whether it's tutoring, freelance design, or reselling products online, every extra dollar in the early stage is worth more than you think. Why? Because those dollars have years to compound. Earn them earlier, and they become decades of growth later. Defense, protecting what you've built. But offense alone won't win the game. Because what good is earning more if the money leaks right back out? Defense is about plugging the holes, cutting unnecessary subscriptions, avoiding lifestyle creep when your income rises, saying no to impulse upgrades that sabotage momentum. It's not about living like a monk. It's about living intentionally. Drive the used car instead of the new one. Cook more meals at home instead of swiping your card on takeout 4 nights a week. Every leak you patch keeps your reservoir of wealth filling faster. Defense creates the gap between what you earn and what you keep. And that gap is the engine of your wealth. Efficiency, making every dollar smarter. Finally, efficiency is where compounding truly shines. This is about where you put your money and how it grows. Because $100 saved in a zero-interest account is a sleeping soldier, but $100 in a high-yield savings account or an index fund is a soldier on the battlefield. Tax-advantaged accounts, like 401ks, Roth IRAs, and HSAs, are rocket boosters. They don't just grow your money, they protect it from taxes that slow compounding down. Low-cost index funds keep fees from draining your returns. Automation keeps your emotions from sabotaging your consistency. Efficiency is what turns saving into building. It transforms dollars from passengers into workers. Workers who never stop, never complain, and never sleep. When you pull these 3 levers together, earning more, keeping more, and growing smarter, your path from $10,000 to $100,000 doesn't crawl. It sprints. And that's when something even more interesting happens. Crossing the $100,000 line doesn't feel like winning the lottery. There's no confetti, no fireworks, no ding on your phone. But something subtle and powerful shifts. For the first time, your money is running faster than you are. Think about it. A 10% return on $100,000 is $10,000. That's more than most Americans can save in a year. And it happens while you sleep. You didn't take a second job. You didn't grind weekends. You just stayed invested and let the system do its job. And here's the key. That $10,000 doesn't disappear into the air. It compounds. Next year, your base isn't $100,000 anymore. It's $110,000. And if markets deliver again, the snowball gets heavier, faster, harder to stop. This is the moment when wealth stops depending on constant willpower. Before, you were the engine. Now, your dollars are the engine, and you are the driver. From here, the math accelerates in ways that feel almost unfair. At $200,000, a 10% return adds $20,000 in 1 year. That's more than the average American's entire annual savings rate without lifting a finger. At $500,000, that same 10% return is $50,000. That's a salary-sized gain for doing nothing but holding your position. This is when people finally understand why the rich seem to get richer so easily. It's not because they're smarter. It's because once the system is in motion, it compounds in their favor. And the truth is, this system isn't exclusive. It doesn't care about your background, your education, or where you started. It only cares that you didn't quit before $100,000. From this point forward, wealth building becomes less about effort and more about architecture, systems, not sacrifices, design, not discipline. Your job is no longer to push the snowball. It's to keep the slope clear, so nothing gets in its way. Something surprising happens once you see 6 figures in your account. It's not just about the money anymore. It's about who you become. At the beginning, every dollar feels like survival. You're scraping, sacrificing, trying to hold on. Your identity is someone trying to save. But at $100,000, your mindset shifts. You stop feeling like a worker chasing money. You start feeling like a builder creating something bigger than yourself. Money stops being just cash in a bank. It becomes infrastructure. Every dollar is no longer a bill to be spent. It's a seed, a potential worker that can multiply if you plant it wisely. A side hustle isn't just extra income anymore. It's a time machine. It compresses years of progress into months because the dollars it creates will compound for decades. Impulse spending starts to feel different too. That $50 dinner out doesn't just cost $50, it costs the future growth of what that $50 could have become. Suddenly, you're not asking, can I afford this right now? You're asking, is this moving me forward or slowing me down? This is what separates those who stall at the early milestones from those who build lasting wealth. Because wealth is not only about numbers, it's about perspective. At six figures, you see money for what it really is, a tool. Not just to buy comfort, but to build freedom. Not just to cover expenses, but to design a future. And once that identity shift happens, the journey feels different. You're no longer climbing uphill. You're steering a machine that grows stronger every day. That's the quiet secret of the wealthy. They don't just have more money, they think differently about money. They see every dollar as part of a system, not a sacrifice. And once you see yourself as the builder, not the struggler, you'll never look at wealth the same way again. So why is saving your first $10,000 harder than reaching $100,000? Because in the beginning, you are carrying everything on your back. The progress feels invisible, the sacrifices feel endless, and the returns feel meaningless. That's the part where most people quit. Not because they're lazy, not because they're incapable, but because they don't realize they are just inches away from the tipping point. The truth is, once you hit $10,000, the curve begins to bend. And from there, momentum takes over. Your dollars start multiplying, your systems begin working, and the weight slowly shifts off your shoulders. The wealthiest people you see today, they weren't born with momentum. They built it, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, and they kept going long enough for the math to finally do the heavy lifting. That's the real difference between the people who break through and the people who stay stuck. Not intelligence, not luck, but patience. Because the hardest part isn't reaching $100,000, it's not even saving the first $10,000. It's staying in the game long enough to let compounding do what it does best, accelerate quietly, then suddenly. So if you're in the grind right now, if you're saving, sacrificing, and feeling like nothing is moving, don't stop. Every dollar you save is not just cash in a jar. It's a worker you've hired. A worker that never clocks out. And one day, those workers will outnumber you, outwork you, and carry you further than you thought possible. That's the moment wealth stops being a dream and starts being a system. If this video helped shift how you see money, hit like and subscribe for more stories that reveal how money really works. And tell us in the comments, what's been the hardest part of your journey so far? The discipline, the income, or just believing it's possible? Because remember this, every dollar you save today is a silent worker that never sleeps, never complains, and never takes a day off. And if you want to go deeper, don't stop here. Click on one of the videos on your screen right now. Each one will take you further into the strategies, history, and mindset shifts that can change the way you build wealth forever.